don't really know what we're doing.
Scrutiny of legislation is an essential role that MLAs have as parliamentarians, and obviously we have a lot of experienced politicians in the Assembly, but also some who are less experienced, and this booklet will be a really useful guide, particularly for the less experienced members, because it's full of practical tips and some terminology notes which will help demystify some of the technicalities and the jargon around primary legislation in particular. It'll also be very useful when it comes to the next Assembly election in 2016, when we, as usual, would probably expect to have some new members, and this sort of guidance, together with our initial PoliticsPlus booklet, Understanding the Legislation Process, the two books together I think will be very useful for new members.
When you become an MLA, the assumption is that you suddenly become, by osmosis, you become an expert in legislation. But there's no reason why you should know anything about it, and many MLAs have had no real contact with legislation beforehand, and in fact many of them have had a little contact, which just makes them more puzzled as to how to use the tool when they get hold of it. And it's an incredibly powerful tool and a dangerous tool. Legislation is a phenomenally powerful force for good and an incredibly dangerous tool that can produce human misery in every area if it's handled badly. And the MLAs are suddenly responsible for it. Well, there is no other area in the world where you would give people powerful tools for good or bad and expect them to go away and run with them, work out for themselves how to use them without any training.
Members need training, no matter what institution or legislature you're in. You need training on an ongoing basis, and that goes for whatever form of employment you're in. So this is a very worthwhile exercise. It has benefits. It's helped build up the skill sets of MLAs, and the public would expect MLAs to maintain a high level of competence in regard to legislation and other areas in terms of their work.
Not many people know much about legislation and the way in which it's made. It's a fairly obscure area even for lawyers, of whom I am obviously one. So anything that could be done to demystify the lawmaking process would be very welcome indeed.
And I think it's fantastic that PoliticsPlus has put itself in a position where we can provide, working with members, the kind of training they need so that this incredible responsibility that they suddenly acquire on election, they are able to exercise in a constructive and decent way.
I've brought forward my own private members bill in terms of the Single-Use Carrier Bags Act. I'm also bringing forward a bill to abolish rates for sports clubs, amateur sports clubs. So this is very useful for me. There is a lot to learn in terms of legislation. There are a lot of pitfalls as well. So the experience of bringing forward legislation is good, but you also need to learn from others who are involved in this kind of work on a day-and-daily basis, and certainly the exercise today I'm looking quite forward to.
I in particular welcome this because I have very few resources in my office to do outreach work with members, which we would very much like to do. So delivering this through PoliticsPlus has been very useful to us. It has also been a very good way of working collaboratively with others in the Assembly, both the Bill Office, PoliticsPlus and Daniel, to make sure that we have a guide that is very workable, and our door is always open to members for advice on any particular issues on the drafting of legislation.
The most important advice that I could give to any member or party support staff is that if they have queries about specific bills or amendments to bills, then we have in-house expertise within the Bill Office, and the clerks in the Bill Office should still be the first port of call for any member seeking advice on a specific bill.